Welcome to another Legal Talk with Hahn and Hahn Attorneys. It is that time of the week again where we chat to Hahn and Hahn Attorneys, and today we're joined by Melissa Tapson from the firm. First time that we're chatting to you, Melissa, but you're fairly new. So first of all, welcome and hello. Nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Eon. Nice to be on the show.
Fantastic. So today we're tackling this subject, the beneficial ownership. What is it and how do I comply? So are you ready for me to ask you some questions?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Right. Can you give us a brief background on beneficial ownership here in South Africa and where this concept stems from?
Yes, certainly, Eon. It's a little bit of a complicated background, but I'm going to do my best to keep it short and to the point. So, it comes as no surprise that globally it's becoming more and more prevalent for people to abuse corporate structures. And we see it a lot with companies and trusts. And they do this to facilitate illicit activities like money laundering, terrorist financing, tax evasion, and corruption. So as part of South Africa's commitment to improve on the transparency in business ownership structures, South Africa underwent an evaluation process with the Financial Action Task Force. And an evaluation report was released in 2021, which essentially summarized South Africa's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures and revealed South Africa's failure to meet the desired standards. So this report essentially found that law enforcement and other government bodies in South Africa face significant challenges in trying to obtain adequate beneficial ownership information about companies to allow them to investigate money laundering and terrorism financing. So South Africa was therefore advised by the Financial Action Task Force to improve its mechanisms for ensuring that accurate and up-to-date beneficial ownership is available to authorities, and also to consider appointing an authority to collect and maintain this information. So in response to that, South Africa enacted what we refer to as the General Laws Anti-Money Laundering and Combating Terrorism Financing Amendment Act. Now, it's quite a name, so we'll refer to it as the Amendment Act. This act amended the Companies Act and later led to the enactment of Companies Amendment Regulations. These amendments require companies to identify and keep a record of the natural persons who own or control the company. And it also provided a mechanism through which the Companies and Intellectual Property Commission, or the CIPC, is mandated to keep this beneficial ownership information. So it's obviously these amendments as well that introduced this concept of beneficial ownership.
Okay. And you mentioned that the amendments to the Companies Act introduced the concept of beneficial ownership. Can you explain what a beneficial owner actually is?
Yes, of course. So we're talking in respect of companies, and the Act defines a beneficial owner as being an individual who directly or indirectly ultimately owns the company or exercises effective control of the company. So this could involve, for example, an individual owning shares, controlling voting rights, appointing or removing board members, or exercising control over, let's say, a holding company of a subsidiary. A beneficial owner could also be an individual who controls other connected entities or persons, or even an individual who can materially influence the company's management. In other words, a beneficial owner is a natural person who has some form of effective ownership or control of a company, and it's a person that gains some form of benefit down the line. These are the people that will need to file their information with the CIPC as beneficial owners. Eon, I think it's important to note that there is a threshold, though, with the CIPC beneficial ownership register only requiring individuals who hold more than 5% beneficial ownership to file this information. So therefore, obviously, if you own less than 5% of a company or you control less than 5% of a company, you don't need to declare this sort of information.
Okay. And if one establishes that they are a beneficial owner of a company, what must you do in order to ensure that you comply with the reporting requirements?
So the CIPC has established a beneficial ownership register on its e-services platform that enables companies to submit their beneficial ownership status online. In this regard, a company would need to designate a person in writing to file this information on their behalf. This person will then need to register as a customer or a user of the CIPC on its e-services platform, and the required documents will need to be filed. The documents that need to be filed it will then consist of obviously the written mandate allowing the filer to file on behalf of the company. It will include certified copies of the IDs of the beneficial owners. It will include a securities register and what's known as a register of disclosure of beneficial interests. And this will then contain certain information such as the full names, dates of birth, ID numbers, residential addresses of the beneficial owners, and obviously the extent of their ownership. So again, once this is now done and filed, then the company will be issued a confirmation certificate, and that will serve as confirmation of compliance with these requirements.
Okay, and is there a time frame within the companies which they need to file their beneficial ownership information?
Well, yes. So for those companies who haven't already done so, they would need to file the information as soon as possible. These requirements became effective from the 24th of May of this year. And the CIPC has announced that there are actually there is no transitional period. So we would advise, of course, that companies start attending to this immediately. Obviously, companies that are incorporated, going forward and that were incorporated after the 24th of May, they will have a certain time within which to file, and that's 10 days.
Okay. 10 days. Okay. Now, I can imagine, Melissa, that a lot of business owners may feel uncomfortable providing such personal information. Will this beneficial ownership information actually be accessible to the public once it's filed on the CIPC register?
So, Ian, it's completely understandable. I think given the nature of the world we live in, that business owners wouldn't want to provide the sensitive information. But I can assure you that the public does not and will not have access to this information. If one has regard to the regulations, it's only the certain law enforcement agencies and vetted competent authorities that would. So this would include, for example, the South African Reserve Services, so SARS. It would include your Financial Intelligence Center, investigating units, all for purposes of investigating illicit financial criminal activities.
And what happens, this is our last question, what happens if companies don't submit this information? What could happen?
Well, that's a good question, Ian. Failure to submit, it's tantamount to non-compliance with the Companies Act. So in the case of non-compliance, and remember, non-compliance could mean anything from failing to submit beneficial ownership information at all, or failing to notify the CIPC when your beneficial ownership information has changed. A compliance notice may be issued, and the company can face administrative penalties of over R1 million or 10% of the company's annual turnover.
Wow.
It can even lead to the disqualification of directors.
Yo.
So yes, Ian, I think it's important that companies ensure they become compliant as soon as possible.
No, definitely. Melissa, thank you so much. This has been very interesting. That, of course, Melissa Tapson, Associate Attorney at Hahn & Hahn. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Ian, for having me.
Are you or your business in trouble and struggling to find a solution? Call Hahn & Hahn Attorneys as we assist clients in finding solutions. We specialize in consumer and food law, commercial and construction law, forensic investigations and administrative law. Visit hahnlaw.co.za. That's HAHN. We assist clients nationwide. Hahn & Hahn Attorneys, because we care. Don't miss Legal Talk with Hahn & Hahn Attorneys, Wednesday mornings at 10 on eRadio.